I think in 5 years or so, VR is going to be a very prominent platform for experiences, for business, for commerce, entertainment, social. And let me tell you why. So I've been trying a lot of the VR gear. And the thing about VR is, and the other version of it called MR, mixed reality, which is where you see virtual objects in the real world, and VR, where you see only the virtual world. Both of those operate on a different part of your brain than when you're watching on a screen. So a very common demonstration in VR is to put on a pair of goggles while you're in a room and then to drop the virtual floor inside away so that you're suddenly standing on a cliff, and to ask you to walk out on a plank that's over nothing. Maybe it's kilometers deep. And for most people, you can't, it's almost impossible to do. Your knees start shaking, you're nauseous. Even while your brain is telling you, hey, you're in the same room I was in a few moments ago. The VR is working on a lower, different part of your brainstem. It's a much more primeval as part of it that experiences things. And when you take your VR goggle off, you remember not having seen something, but having experienced it. And that ability to get to where we feel things, get to where we experience things is very, very powerful. And in trying many, many of these worlds for almost 2 decades or more, one of the things that's most surprising to me is that the most intriguing things in these worlds are not incredible objects, they're not amazing worlds, they're actually other people. So when you have a world with other people in it, that's really what's the most powerful thing. And we now have the ability to add a couple things to make those people seem real. One of them is eye contact. The other one is the ability to have real-time capture of their movements, so you can see their body language, and you can detect that that's actually this other person. And the experience is a real experience. And that experience of other people, I think, is going to make VR the most social of all the social media. And I actually been trying a couple of these VR games where you have to do stuff physically, and even the idea that this is sort of, you're going to become a big slug in a closet is isolated is totally wrong. This is going to be some of the most calisthenic, kinetic activity that we're going to undergo. VR is likely to become the social platform within 5 years. And this is the place we're going to download, exchange, buy, purchase experiences, which are going to be some of the most valuable things that we can create.
So, to tell how and why virtual reality is disruptive, let's first talk about disruptive technology. Disruptive technology is innovation that has a huge impact on a large amount of people. It is something that will change the way we live, it will change the market. Businesses will start modeling themselves after this technology, there will be competition, and as competition grows, there will be innovation, different models. Disruptive technology is something that disrupts the world around us and changes the way we do things. So, how is virtual reality disruptive? As we heard from Kevin Kelly previously, virtual reality gives us the potential to experience rather than to watch. With that, I drew a parallel to McLuhan's The Medium is the Massage, as a massage rather than message. This medium, virtual reality, that we're talking about, stimulates all senses and truly creates experiences and memories different from watching a movie or playing a standard video game. Virtual reality has the potential to disrupt countless experiences as we know them. The easiest to assume, of course, is video games. Rather than sitting in a chair and watching the screen with a controller in our hands, we can be present in the world in which we are playing. Aside from that, there's even been training methods for driving and flying that incorporate VR. And that, of course, eliminates the possibility of crashing, or at least the potentially horrendous side effects of it. There's also police officer training in caves, which is where the world is presented on a blank wall in front of you or around you. and then the VR headsets, where you're kind of seeing it in your headset. In this way, the officer can experience a dangerous scenario, and they have the ability to make mistakes without endangering anyone's life. So they can get all of the experience they need to actually do it in the real world, with less possibility of making those mistakes. In addition, there's also been a lot of research on virtual reality and autism. With VR, an autistic person can experience certain scenarios in a controlled way, in order to be more comfortable with them over time. You know how a lot of people with autism may be triggered by certain situations, or they won't grasp certain social cues. VR gives them a chance to practice almost, or become more comfortable in potentially triggering situations where there's a lot of noise, a lot of people, a lot of scuffle. Anyway, there's also studies that incorporate VR into understanding and treating psychological disorders and violent criminals. And of course, there's the social aspect that Kevin Kelly described and the overlaid video that I put in there of Facebook Spaces. So a lot of VR development is going the route of allowing a person to live completely virtually. There's certain apps that allow you to create your own space or pick a space. You can invite friends, you can play games, you can put on your favorite music, and you don't even have to leave your computer. When you're able to create an entire virtual world like this and experience it, the possibilities are endless. So with this potential in mind, virtual reality has and will continue to affect developers and researchers as well. Developers are going to want to put out the latest and greatest experience with the best graphics that has everything you want and everything that you need. There's going to be competition, of course, as there already is with HTC Vive versus PS4 versus Oculus. So I personally think that virtual reality is the future. So I chose VR because it has so much potential. I personally don't have my own VR set at home, but the video I showed before, overlaid on top of that Kevin Kelly speech, was a video of me walking the plank in the introduction. So before trying it out, I was talking to my friend about it, and I was absolutely 100% confident that I would be able to walk out there like it was nothing, and I could jump off and it would be totally fine. But after actually trying it, there's no possible way. Like Kevin Kelly stated, your knees get weak, you get shaky. It feels like you're really out there. There's like sounds of the breeze, the plank creaks. You can see birds. There's like a helicopter that flies by at some point. So it really feels real. Even though I knew where I was in my friend's VR room and there was solid floor all around me, I absolutely couldn't do it. I couldn't jump anyway. Maybe if I close my eyes, but I think that's kind of like cheating. Where's the fun in that? So I guess I chose VR because not only have I read the studies about how positive it can be for treatment of mental health and psychological disorders and autism, but I was able to experience firsthand just how real it felt and see the potential that VR has to create an experience that feels completely real, and to just imagine what the potential that has for how many different things that we can use it for training, for treatment, for studying certain psychological illnesses or responses to certain situations, to, of course, just having fun and being able to actually be in, the world of Fallout. I guess if you're at the Fallout 4 was Boston, so you're actually walking around a destroyed Boston 1960s-esque wasteland. It's really amazing. So that's why I chose VR. It's been a long road to where we are now with virtual reality, and I think there's still a long way to go. Some early innovations that led to VR were panoramic paintings and stereoscopic photos and viewers in the 1800s. Then the first flight simulator in the 1930s, and then there was cinematographer Morton Heilig's Sensorama. And that's what I'm showing footage of here. This was in the 1950s. It's kind of like a booth that you stick your face into, and it would stimulate all of your senses. So of course you could see the picture. You could hear sounds in stereo, so left and right, and there were fans. There were smells, if that was applicable. The chair would vibrate. And so after that one, we had the first head-mounted displays in the 1960s, and those actually look pretty similar to what we have today. And then 1961, we had the first motion tracking headset or head-mounted display. So to get here, we've mostly progressed in technology. So the motion sensing's gotten better, graphics have gotten better, etc. And I think the aim of all of this virtual reality technology is to create an immersive experience. We all have an imagination and we can all generate pictures and memories in our minds, even things we've never seen before. But why not get as close as possible to making the imagination a reality? The future of virtual reality is going to be amazing. The possibilities really are endless. When VR made its first appearance with the headsets in 1960s, got better in the 90s, but didn't quite take off, I think now is the time for VR. As far as future possibilities go, I've mentioned the police training. I think that's either being studied or researched, if not being used right now. Military is using VR for training, but any high-risk training could really benefit from VR. It does allow for that realistic experience rather than just book learning or role playing before you're out in the field and you can make mistakes that could cost you or someone else their life. VR could also be used by companies before they make major renovations. They would be able to use the headset to see their space, make changes, maybe with gestures. They could walk around and quote unquote experience it before making a huge commitment. This same technique could apply for homeowners redoing a kitchen or a bathroom, or maybe even their whole house, kind of like we see on HGTV. VR could be used in teaching, especially for an online environment. There's a potential to create a classroom environment from home for online learning where you can see your teacher, your fellow classmates, or at least their avatar and their features, kind of almost like you're seeing them in person. You'd be able to see somebody raise their hand, or you could share, you could talk, and it could create a really awesome learning environment. The same could apply with work from home jobs, just so you're not feeling so isolated. Maybe your job could set up a program where you have like a water cooler where everybody could meet up, or meetings with virtual reality. Um, there's also, of course, VR for treatment, as I've mentioned, of mental health issues and autism, like we mentioned before. So virtual reality is doing some amazing things. There's a lot of research in the works, and I think it has the potential to change everything. It could be one of the most disruptive technologies of this century, in my opinion.